Hey friends, it's Barbara and welcome back to my channel. Today, let's make some farmhouse home signs as well as some interchangeable mini wreaths. Let's get started on the wreaths first. I will be using 4 of these plastic shower curtain holders. Now, I found this in a pack of 12 at Family Dollar for $1, but you can also find the shower curtain holders at Dollar Tree. I'm going to wrap each one of these using some jute rope, and I found that it was super easy once I get it on there and get it stable to just open that up and wrap it around the shower curtain rod until I get all the way to the end. That way I don't have to feed that jute rope all the way through. Once you get to the end, you're going to want to close that up and make sure it's nice and tight, and then finish wrapping it, and then finish the end off with a little bit of hot glue. And I will repeat that process for all 4 of these shower rings, and you're going to have a nice base for your wreath. Now, once all 4 of those are complete, we can start on each seasonal wreath. And it does not have to be perfectly wrapped because most of it's going to be covered up, but you just want that nice base in case you can see it from the sides. So for the spring, I chose to use some lavender, which this came off of a pick from Walmart, as well as some floral wire. So I am just overlapping the bud on the one end to the stem on the other end, and then wrapping that really tightly with my floral wire and then squeezing it together with my pliers. And I will continue to do that until I can form a circle about the size of our shower ring. When you get to the end, you're just going to repeat that process by using the floral wire to wrap that bud on one end to the end of the stem on the other. And I'm going to create 2 of these so I can have a nice full wreath. I'll take the first one and glue it down to the rope on the base of our wreath. And I'm going to periodically glue that around almost to the outside of this wreath form. And then once I have that in place, I'll take the second one to be more of a filler on the top part of the wreath and glue that down as well. And then I did take a couple of extra little buds off of the lavender pick and then glued those periodically around the wreath to give it a little bit more shape and to make it just a tiny bit larger and just a little bit fuller. So once you have all of those in place, you now have a really gorgeous lavender wreath for the spring. So now let's get started on the fall. I'm using some of these burlap leaves from Dollar Tree as well as one of those wired leaves from Dollar Tree. And I'm just cutting small sections down and I'm going to hot glue them overlapping one another onto the top of the wreath base. Once I have all of my orange ones in place, I'm going to cut off some of the wired wreath, and then I'm going to glue this behind the orange ones to give it a little bit more fullness. And they're not going to be completely surrounding the back of the orange one, but just enough, like it's almost skipping a little bit of space in between, but you just want to get it nice and full. Once I have all of those in place, I'm going to take some pipberry garland. Now this came from Family Dollar. It has a gorgeous orange and a nice deep burgundy color to it. Sometimes you can find some of the fall garland like this at Dollar Tree, but I actually found this one at Family Dollar. And I'm going to wrap this around the entire wreath, trying to place my pip berries there on the top so that you'll be able to see them. And I'm not pulling it too tightly because I want to be able to move that around a little bit and shape it up once I have that in place. Now the end piece, I did cut that off and tucked it underneath the beginning where I started wrapping the wreath. And then to add some size to the back of this, I'm going to take some of Dollar Tree's mini pine cones that come in that pumpkin scented cinnamon pine cone bag. And I'm going to hot glue these right on top of the wreath form behind those brown burlap leaves. And this is just so gorgeous. I love how that fall wreath turned out. For the summer wreath, I'm going to use 2 different kinds of baby's breath from Dollar Tree. The flowers themselves, I'm going to cut them down right below the stem, and then I will cut off a few of the sprigs of the styrofoam baby's breath. I'm going to start off by gluing those styrofoam pieces on the top part of the wreath, overlapping each other so that the florals on those little tiny styrofoam pieces will overlap the end stem that I just glued down. I'll do that around the entire outside of the wreath, and then I'm going to start filling in the front part of the wreath using those pretty white flowers. And I'm just going to hot glue each one of those all the way around the top part of this until it is nice and full. Of course, for these wreaths, you could use whatever kind of florals that you want for each of the holidays or for each of the seasons. For the Christmas and winter wreath, I'm going to use one of these picks from Hobby Lobby that I got on sale. It's like the Fraser fir almost. And I cut just small pieces of that off, and I'm going to hot glue it just like I did on the previous wreath, overlapping one another all the way around the outside part of this wreath, leaving a little bit of length so it looks nice and full. Then I'll take a couple of those small sprigs and glue those on the top of the wreath to fill everything in and to make sure, well, I'm not trying to completely cover the burlap, but I just want it to have a nice full look. Then I'm going to use some of the berries off of a Dollar Tree pick, and I'm going to cut those off, and they're only 3 little bundles, so I cut one of the larger bundles in half, and I'm going to glue all of those 4 sections right onto the front of my wreath, and now you have a really beautiful Christmas winter wreath that you can use on your sign. Now we have all 4 of our wreaths complete, and this is how they look. We can start on our first sign that we're going to make, and I'm starting off by using this picture frame from Dollar Tree. I'm going to remove that backing and then remove that felt rose on the top and then that glue. So I originally tried to take the paper off of this, but the paper would not come off, so I'm going to sand it down nice and smooth. You could paint this, but I opted to go ahead and just cover it with some plain white poster board. So I just traced that out, cut it down, and then I'm going to use a regular school glue stick to attach this to the top of the backing of our frame. This is going to cover it up and give us a nice base so you won't see all that lettering through when we put our scrapbook paper on top. So I am using some scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby that looks like this faux wood, and because it's such a light color, I wanted to make sure that that backing did not come through, so that's why we put the poster board on there. I'm going to trace this out and cut it down, and then I'm actually going to use some Mod Podge to attach this because I want to have a nice even coat and make sure it is secured onto our poster board and that it stays for a really long time and it doesn't pop off. So I'm going to place that on there and then use this roller from Plaid and roll that out, make sure I get all my air bubbles and everything's nice and smooth. And then I created this decal on my Cricut. I always try to have a free printable when I create things because I know not everyone has a Cricut. So I have this as a free printable on my website, which is in my description box below. You can go over to my website and then download this and print it on your printer, and then you can trace this onto your project. If you do have a Cricut, I use the font Hello Butterfly for Welcome and Georgia for To Our Home. And I placed my decal at the top half of the sign. For the picture frame itself, I'm going to give this 2 coats of my black chalkboard craft paint because it's a very glossy finish on this frame. I did opt to use the chalkboard paint because I don't think acrylic paint would adhere to it very well. So once that's dry, you can put your backing back in, and I'm using one of these clear command strips with a silver hook at the bottom, and I'm going to place that right there onto the sign so we'll have a nice place for our wreaths to hang. And now you have a beautiful decor piece that you can keep up year-round and just change out the wreaths for the season. You guys, I love how this project turned out, and I really hope you guys like it too. If you're new to my channel and you are enjoying today's video, I would love for you to click that subscribe button and the notification bell. And also visit me on my other social media accounts, Instagram, my website, my Amazon store for my favorites, and my Pinterest. Okay, you guys, let's get started on our next sign. This sign right here from Dollar Tree is simply gorgeous, so we are not going to mess with this side. This can be a two-sided sign if you want it to be. We're actually just going to use the back part of it, removing the hanger as well as those staples and then sanding those holes down nice and smooth. I'm going to give this one base coat of white chalk paint. I'm also going to be using some jumbo craft sticks, and I'm going to cut these sticks down to 5 3/4 of an inch, which is the width of our sign up the top. And I'm using my handheld miter shears, which I have that linked in my Amazon store if you are interested. I sanded those ends down, and now that the white paint has dried, I'm going to go over this with some Waverly Antique Wax. I'm applying it with a soft brush and then taking a dry paper towel and just kind of smearing it and going in one direction. So I'm trying to create the wood grain effect, and I'm going to do this in sections at a time so that the wax does not dry before I go in with my paper towel and kind of make those streaks to make it look like wood. Now, you may be wondering, why didn't I just apply the wax directly to the back of this board? Instead, I painted it white first. Well, I wanted those light undertones to give it more of a realistic wood look. If you paint or put that wax just on the back of that cardboard type stuff, it just simply looks like brown. So you need that light coat to give it more of a dimension and to make it look more real. I'm also going to use that antique wax on the craft sticks with the same process by applying it and then wiping it off. Now make sure you get all of your outside edges of the craft sticks because you will be able to see those. And you're going to let all of that dry before you apply the craft sticks to the side. So I'm going to adhere these with hot glue about 1/2 of an inch off of each end. And this is going to give it that nice wood look on the edging, like a little banding on the end. And to give it a little bit of like a nail head look, I'm using some of these pop stickers from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to give 4 of those 2 coats of paint, make sure they're completely dried, and then I'm going to place one at the top and bottom of each of our craft sticks using a little dot of hot glue. Not only do they look like nail heads, but it also brings those craft sticks out and really gives our sign some dimension. Now, I found these letters at Hobby Lobby, and I want to say they were about $1.70 a piece. I know you could find some of the MDF pieces at Walmart, but I couldn't find the lettering at my Walmart, so I did get these at Hobby Lobby. And I'm securing them down with some E6000 because it gives me a little bit of time to move my lettering around to line it up, but I also know it's going to give it that nice permanent hold. Again, I'm going to use another command strip to place right there between the 2 letterings so that we'll have a place for our wreath. And I just held the wreath up in place to make sure that I knew exactly where to put that command strip and then hold it in place. Now, I forgot all about this, so I recommend that you take a clear sealant. I'm using some clear sealing wax to go over this antique wax. It would be great if I had done that before I put the lettering on, but I completely forgot about it. So I'm doing it now just to make sure that wax and that paint don't chip off and that it'll last a really long time. Now you have a 2-sided sign. Not only can you use one side for all the seasons, but if you want to flip it over and use it in the fall with that gorgeous truck on the other side, you can. And you can also use these wreaths with both of these signs because they fit perfectly. You guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, I would love for you to click that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching. I truly do appreciate each and every one of you. Please take care, and I'll see you guys next time.